Hey, what's going on, Guardians? TBL here from Planet Destiny, and we are officially just 3 days away from what's going to be our very first look at the sequel to Destiny 1. The Destiny 2 live event is coming at us very quickly, and I felt now was a good enough time as any to start speculating a little bit about some of the things we'd see and some of the things we would like to see. Ultimately, right now, Destiny's PvE is in a really good spot. I feel like the PvE in Destiny is actually the best it's probably ever been. There's so many different avenues for loot, so many different ways to level up, and so many different things to play. Each and every week, ranging from stuff like the new weekly featured raids, the Nightfall, Challenge of Elders, the weekly story playlist, the Heroic Strike playlist. You've got your daily public events for legendary rewards and all kinds of things. You can really jump into Destiny's PvE right now, do whatever you want, and make big gains. And ultimately, that's a very good thing. That's the kind of thing we as Destiny players have basically been wanting, the kind of PvE environment we've been looking for since we first started this game almost 3 years ago now. And with Destiny 2 on the horizon, I'd like to think that Bungie took a lot of lessons from what they've learned with Destiny 1 and are looking to apply that in Destiny 2, specifically with PvE, because again, things right now are better than they have ever been when it comes to the PvE. But with that being said, and again with us being a mere 3 days away from our first real look at Destiny 2 gameplay, I wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about some, maybe a little bit of a wish list of a few things that I really want to see return in Destiny 2, specifically concerning the raids. Raids in Destiny 1 were a bit of a mixed bag, but a mostly good one. We had the fantastic Vault of Glass, which showed us really what Destiny was ultimately capable of bringing in terms of a team-building exercise, we'll sort of say. Then a little bit more lackluster with Crota's Inn, a heavy focus on teamwork and mechanics in King's Fall, and finally bringing things back to a bit more of a focused experience in Wrath of the Machine. And ultimately with these raids, Destiny has provided a really great experience and a lot of really cool mechanics that I would really like to see make their way into Destiny 2. So really the big purpose of today's video is to talk about 3 specific things tied to Destiny raids, be it mechanics or just specific features that I would really love to see take more of a center focus across all the raids we're hopefully going to be getting in Destiny in the future. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. When Wrath of the Machine came out with Rise of Iron, everyone was no doubt super duper excited for it. Bungie has this really amazing ability to pool hype for the unknown together almost unlike any other gaming company out there. And when we started Rise of Iron, we had no idea what to expect with the Wrath of the Machine. We didn't know if it was going to be a more mechanically focused raid like King's Fall, or if it was going to be a bit more classic like the Vault of Glass. But one thing that we definitely weren't expecting was for it to be as ludicrously generous with rewards as it wound up being. Wrath of the Machine wound up being absolutely chock full of loot. From hidden chests seemingly around every single corner, to plenty of drops from the bosses, to a hidden exotic questline that required math, teamwork, coordination, and finding a bunch of scrambled monitors. Wrath of the Machine paid out like nothing else in the game. And ultimately, that had been something players were asking for a very long time. While I don't really think anybody dislikes the experience in Vault of Glass, there was no doubt that people were looking for more loot after they finished it. And that was certainly never a problem with Wrath of the Machine. In particular, Wrath of the Machine introduced a new item called Siva Key Fragments, which, when stacked into a pile of 10, would create a Siva cache key, allowing you to open up an extra chest after each and every boss encounter, basically granting you double rewards if you had enough cache keys. And thankfully, the fragments themselves were extremely easy to build up. You got them from completing encounters or from opening the mini treasure chests that were scattered about the raid itself. This was a really fantastic system that Bungie implemented, which made running the raid all the more rewarding. I mean, a single run through Wrath of the Machine where you get all of the hidden chests can easily fill your entire postmaster with legendaries and raid drops. And while getting 10 key fragments to make a single cache key seemed daunting at first when the raid first came out, you'll quickly find yourself building up large amounts of key fragments if you're hitting all of the hidden chests, virtually guaranteeing that you're going to have at least 1 to 2 Siva cache keys by the time you finish the raid itself. basically guaranteeing you at least 1 to 2 extra rewards. And on top of all that, Siva key fragments had one more little function that made them fantastic. You could actually utilize them to re-roll raid armor. Armor from the Wrath of the Machine raid has the unique benefit of re-rolling the stats and abilities on it if you've got at least 5 key fragments. This was a huge change in terms of the way raid gear worked. Usually the gear that you get is set, and if you got a bad stat roll, you were just stuck with a bad stat roll. And this ability to re-roll armor stat allocation and abilities via an in-game raid drop was absolutely fantastic and kind of revolutionary. We had never seen anything quite like that since the old weapon re-rolling back in House of Wolves. And it's definitely a feature that I desperately want to see make its return in Destiny 2. Unfortunately, we didn't get this sort of system grandfathered in to the older raids like Vault of Glass, Crota's Inn, and King's Fall when they came back for the weekly featured raids in Age of Triumph, but hopefully this is going to be something moving forward in Destiny 2. I think a lot of players would really appreciate that. Alright then, moving on to raid feature number 2 that I would love to see make some sort of return in Destiny 2, challenge modes. It's kind of odd to think about now, but challenge modes for the raids wasn't always a thing. As a matter of fact, it was entirely non-existent for all of Year 1, and really only started part of the way into the Taken King. Tasking teams with defeating the 3 main raid bosses of King's Fall, the War Priest, Golgoroth, and Oryx himself in a very specific way, and then granting you extra rewards based on completing that challenge. It was a pretty simple idea overall, but it really impacted the way players played King's Fall. Can you remember what fighting Oryx was like before we figured out the challenge was to detonate 16 orbs at once? It was a lot more hectic, so when Bungie required that players detonate all of those orbs at once, it showed off a completely different strategy than what most players were used to, and is now basically the preferred way to defeat him. And of course, this same system can now be found in all of the raids. It was continued in Wrath of the Machine with Rise of Iron, and now with the Age of Triumph, challenges have been retroactively added to both the Vault of Glass and Crota's Inn, and they make some of those encounters a lot more fun, or a lot more hectic depending on your team comp. But ultimately, I think they've been a fantastic addition to the world of Destiny, and I would like to see them expanded upon a little bit in Destiny 2. If I had one complaint about challenge modes in Destiny 1, it's that they don't really change encounters too much. Remember when challenge mode was first announced, and everybody was trying to figure out what it was going to be for like Golgoroth or for Oryx? We all were expecting insane things to happen. Like for Oryx, people thought that you'd had to have a different relic runner each time, and you couldn't have more than one person detonating more than one bomb on the same side, so people were trying to rotate and all kinds of crazy things, and the same thing with Wrath of the Machine and Crota's End. But ultimately, of course, the challenges wound up being a lot more straightforward than a lot of people considered. To the point in some cases where people completed the challenge mode without even realizing what they had done correctly. There just wasn't really a lot of visual fanfare to let you know that what you were doing was right. But thankfully, that problem got mostly fixed with Age of Triumph, giving you the challenged failed message whenever you mess stuff up in Vault of Glass or Crota's Inn. Why that wasn't retroactively added to Wrath of the Machine or King's Fall, I don't know, but I hope it's definitely going to be a thing in Destiny 2. Having specific loot like emblems and shaders or weapons and stuff locked behind raid challenges I think is a great idea and a great incentive to get people going back to your raid after they've already completed it once or twice. And it's definitely something I really hope makes an appearance in Destiny 2. Although really, I don't think they'd drop this system after it's done them so much good. Alright, and finally, the last thing I'd really like to see in Destiny 2, the last raid mechanic sort of idea from Destiny 1 that I really want to see make a big comeback, is the idea of a relic. And I mean, come on, you had to know this one was coming. The idea of a relic is easily the most iconic part of raids in Destiny 1. They are by far the most symbolic thing about Destiny raids, the pinnacle of PvE content. And they are definitely something I really want to see make a return in Destiny 2. Remember, not every raid in Destiny has a unified relic. Neither King's Fall nor Wrath of the Machine really have a kind of centralized raid relic that's similar to the Sword of Crota or the Aegis Shield in the Vault of Glass. Those relics had offensive and, in the Aegis Shield's case, defensive capabilities that were integral to certain mechanics in the raid. For the Aegis Shield in the Vault of Glass, it meant having someone who was able to do stuff like break the Templar Shield, cleanse and protect everyone from the marks of negation, and really just kind of take point and lead the team. And I love that sort of thing. And in Crota's End, the Sword Bearer was your one real weapon against gatekeepers and Crota himself, but they couldn't do it alone. They had to have the rest of the team coordinate, open a path for them, take out the Sword Bearer, and then drop Crota's overshield so that the Sword Bearer could actually get in there and do a combination. It was just this great mesh of teamwork that worked really well, and in certain cases, like with the random teleports in the Vault of Glass, got some players who were usually more content keeping a backseat to take charge and really learn how to utilize raid mechanics. And I don't know, I just love that overall mechanic focus on a centralized item and the teamwork that's built up around it. I think it worked really, really well in the Vault of Glass and in Crota's End. And while I certainly don't think every new raid in Destiny 2 needs to have a centralized relic, certainly Wrath of the Machine and King's Fall are two fantastic bits of content that I love, I would still like to see some sort of relic focus come back in Destiny 2. It just seems like an idea that feels so uniquely Destiny now that I really can't imagine them going without it. But either way, we should hopefully be learning more about what exactly we'll be getting in Destiny 2 very, very soon. But alright guys, that's just a few quick things that I would love to see make a return from the raids in Destiny 1. What about you? Do you have any specific raid mechanics from Destiny that you really love and would love to see make a return in Destiny 2? Be sure to let us know down in the comment section below. But alright, it's going to be it for this one guys. Again, we are just a mere 3 days away from our first real look at the launch of Destiny 2, and I cannot wait. We will of course be covering everything we learn right here on the channel, so make sure you stay tuned. But alright, it's going to be it for this one guys. Thanks so much for watching. And as always, I am TheBlackLink. You Guardians, stay frosty.